Seems fair to me.
Yes, he did.
Well, if you don't know what fair is, you can't make it.
Unacceptable by any reason.
Donnybrook is made possible by the members of the 9 Network.
Thanks a lot for joining us on this edition of Donnybrook. Great to have you with us. We have a wonderful panel about to share their opinions, starting with Wendy Weiss, the media veteran who's now the news director for the Big 550, KTRS. He's Mr. Bill McClellan from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and STLtoday.com. From the Riverfront Times and the Big 550 KTRS, Mr. Ray Hartman. And from 590, 97.1 FM News Talk, as well as the St. Louis American and STLmag.com, Alvin Reed, who got to the studio today via the Loop Trolley. Maybe not.
Well, it's funny, like, we have a great tradition in our family of gawking. So we would go look at tornado damage and stuff like that. Sorry, I apologize. All right, but all right.
But the question might be,
yeah, that
the
gosh.
Loop Trolley. The people behind it say they need another $700,000. Otherwise, they're going to go out of business. They need $200,000 by November 15th. St. Louis County officials so far are saying no dice. What do you think should happen? Should St. Louis County taxpayers fork over $700,000?
Okay, I have been just the whole trolley thing. I've just said man, I don't know, and then. But the one thing that I could say right now is I told you so, but I'm not going to tell you I told you so. I'm going to go into damage control mode. Somebody needs to come up with the $200,000, and if Sam Page came to me right now, I said I'm going to go against the overwhelming majority of county residents and say let's float them the $700K, only to say that hopefully private interest can step up in the meantime and get us till spring, where somebody with some deep pockets or deep thought or deep criminal background can come up with this money, because we just can't let it go down the toilet.
Alvin, we can and we have to. And I will say, I told you so, right. Mainly to our good friend Ray. It never, as wise as Joe Edwards has been, this was never a good idea to have a trolley going from Blueberry Hill to the History Museum. I mean, that's just not a place where people want to go. And the idea that we're going to throw some more money at it, Alvin, and hope that there's a trolley ferry somewhere who's going to, come up with a couple $100,000 more. I think at some time you just have to say, hey, it was never a good idea, but we gave it a shot and it didn't work.
As I said this week, if this were anyone but Joe Edwards,
sure,
we would never have said, sure, what a cute, quaint idea. Well, now we're into the tune of $51.5 million worth of cute and quaint, and none of the projections has met, even come close to meeting reality. And I think you have to step back and just look at your target audience, if you will. Kids today, and I know that makes me sound like Grandma Moses when you begin anything, when you preface anything that way, but kids today live in a digital reality, and they do virtual reality games. A trolley car is not charming. It's neither charming nor quaint to them. They don't know what it is. I just don't think that we should sink any more money, especially in 2019.
Well, Ray, what do you say?
Yeah, I'm really, to my colleagues' comments, I'm just really tired of playing me on this show. I need a new teleprompter. I mean, there's no question that, well, let's put it this way. We've got to look forward. Tony Messenger has a column he just posted online saying this, and I think he's right. And Tony's somebody against the trolley. I was definitely a defender of it, and we could relitigate that, but we really have a problem here. And the question is there a tourism related, it's a transportation thing, and it obviously this is something that works in other cities, but here it doesn't go from point A to point B the way it should or needed to. There is the charm part of it is what it started with. Joe Edwards' original idea was just about charm and bringing back the streetcars. It wasn't a grandiose thing. I don't know the answer, but I think that one place is to look is the private sector, for sure, because there isn't much political will to do much. And I think we need to revisit the management, for sure. There's got to be some accountability. If there's anything...
But Joe Edwards himself said that in response to Sam Page's discussion about governance, what are you going to change? I mean...
look, there's a TDD, for example, involved. And Nicole Galloway, one of her things has been about how many TDDs don't always manage the money well. So, I'm sorry, it's taxing development.
I think it's actually a CID, Community Investment District.
But my point being, there's some. If there is going to be public money, there's got to be accountability.
But organizations, city, municipality-wide, came up with those highfalutin 300, 400,000 people are going to. That was not Joe Edwards. Now, how that relationship worked, who knows? But that's where that came from. But here's another reason you might want to look at maybe investing a little bit more in it. It wouldn't run through U City when it was first supposed to be until they paid the bond, just in case the whole thing was a flop and he had to take the tracks out. Okay? All right, so there was a bond paid, but I doubt it will cover how much that will actually cost. Plus, the business owners, some of which said they went out of business when the thing was put in, would have to go through the same kind of drama. Then, two, aren't the feds knocking at the door?
They are.
They want their money back. They want their money back. They're going to get some money back.
About Joe, the one thing I will say to defend it is the intent was good, and I think we all accept that. This isn't something where somebody was trying to get rich quick.
And we know that the road to is paved with good intentions.
What I'm trying to say is the intention. I think the question is, from a tourism standpoint, can it be something that people rent out for parties and do things, some different paradigm for it, but that supports it with advertising dollars?
Could you double
Can you do some things?
It was so much fun.
We got to look at trying to figure
when
it out.
finally started to run, remember?
Right.
It went delayed,
and then
they finally got it started.
I just think we need to try to figure out something.
Running into car rearview mirrors.
All right, well, it's not our greatest moment. We've had a few of them. I mean, we've had we have Mid-America Airport that Tom Brokaw already said was the fleecing of America.
Did you see
we
that
have one airline there.
The director just resigned, and he had been there 17 years.
Tim Cantwell.
17
He's retired.
years.
He's retired.
Retiring.
How about the extension of the runway at Lambert Field, where we took out Bridgeton, and now 4% of flights at Lambert are on that. So it's not the first time, but it's an issue. All right, I want to ask you, Bill McClellan, about a story that is sports. Maybe it's not sports. Maybe it's about values. Cardinal Ritter is accused of playing one of their suspended players on the first game of the season in Chicago against Nazareth. I'm talking about the Cardinal Ritter High School football team, when that young man was supposed to be serving a suspension. And it seems as if all indications are that he wore the uniform of a freshman to disguise himself during that game. And he ran 13 times for 109 yards, including one 56-yard run for a touchdown, had a great game. But the point is, the school was playing a suspended player when it shouldn't have, and probably the school pretty much knew about it, at least the coach certainly. Should the coach be fired, and if so, anybody else? Yeah,
well, I think the coach should be fired. I'd fire the president of the school. I think the really terrible thing about this, if it's true, and there's photographs that make it seem evident, is it has implicated all the other kids on the team in knowing, because everybody had to know that our star running back can't play, and all of a sudden, there he is, playing with somebody else's jersey. So all of the kids were drawn into this too, and I just think it's awful, and it's a small school. So if the president of the school didn't know what was going on, I'd just say, well, we don't need somebody this dense to be president of the school. But certainly the coach should be fired as well.
Okay. It's not kind of like a really a horrible situation like at Penn State where people got indicted, but they knew. People went to them and said, like, hey, such and such and such is going on, and they took no action. I think if the man or woman who is, president of the school just simply didn't know that this was, like I say, the coaching staff, the players were basically the only people that knew. Maybe it stops within that circle. Also, I would say that only because it was probably 100 degrees heat index because it was August 31st. Why didn't the kid just wear long sleeves? Because it was his tattoos
that gave him away.
So if you're gonna be a con, you gotta be smarter than that. You know?
Yeah. As a Catholic, I probably think it's even more serious because you're selling the idea of a Catholic school based on Catholicity, based on a higher moral ground. So I think that anyone who is proven to have had any prior knowledge of this situation has to go. If that's top to bottom, if it just stays in the locker room or the athletic department, that's fine. If it reaches into the front office, that's fine. But this is very, very serious. You're compromising young minds ethically in every way, in my opinion. And so
it's a darn shame because it is the number one team in the country, Cardinal Ritter. Right around the corner from the Nine Network here in Creve.
And this is the first game of the year. I mean, it was a one-game suspension. The kid would have had to sit out, so it isn't like you think, gee, he's going to lose his scholarship if he doesn't get to play. This is just the coach and maybe the administration saying, we want to win every game, and we'll not only cheat to do it, but we're going to implicate all these other kids in it.
It's awful.
Real quick, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to say this. Here's the bizarre thing. They might have to forfeit all the games they played, which would be 7. The way the Missouri State High School, Athletic Association works, they have districts, which basically you play 3 teams, and whoever the best of the 3 is goes to the playoffs. I have not heard that it has been outruled that even by forfeiting these games, they're the best team in this area. They will win district, and they could go to the state tournament unless somebody steps in and stops them, and they should be stopped. They should not have a right to play for the state championship.
Wow.
I agree with that. I don't know. My moral compass must be not. I'm not as outraged as everybody. I mean, I think it's bad. I mean, I think as far as the president goes, I think you really do. We don't know what kind of educator the president is. I think before we just want to throw out the president for what the NCAA would call loss of institutional control, we ought to know a little more facts than that. I personally,
You want to throw out the president of the United States for loss of institutional control, right?
No, I would throw him out for being a criminal, but the
slightly different. All right, thanks,
no.
Ray. Let's move on because of time and all that. Lewis Reed, the president of the Board of Aldermen, Wendy, wants to require gun dealers in the city who are required by federal law to ask for background checks for prospective buyers to inform the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department of all those applicants that fail. So if I apply for a permit and I'm denied, Lewis Reed, the president of the Board of Aldermen, wants the police to be informed about that. What do you think?
Well, at face value, I thought, well, that's a great idea. I was very pleased with that idea until I continued the thought and wondered, okay, so what are the police going to do with that information? They can't do anything with that information, but they can't do anything until there's an action taken. If somebody acts illegally, tries to purchase a gun illegally or purchases a gun illegally, I would rather have the information about people who were denied a permit, put somewhere, a database. I'd rather have that information than not. It's kind of a grandiose pie in the sky idea, but it's better than nothing.
I don't think it's a bad idea. There's every time we have a mass shooting, people say, what could we have done? What could we have known? Should we have been watching this person? And I don't know. I assume police authorities, be they local or federal or state, have people they're keeping their eye on. And the fact that somebody attempted to purchase a gun who didn't qualify because of the background check is at least enough of a warning. Do I think it's going to have a huge impact? No, but it certainly doesn't bother me.
But here's the thing.
No.
First of all, a guy who's going to do harm isn't going to go for a background check. Number two, only dealers are required to issue the background check, so he can just go to a private sale. And if that doesn't work, he can go outside of the city to St. Charles County. And if that doesn't work, even if that information is sent to the chief, the chief doesn't have the time to have the police officers monitoring this. I mean, they've got like one patrol car in all of downtown St. Louis. Was that guy going to take time off of his schedule and start looking at the guys who apply for background checks? That's just not going to happen.
Yeah, there's kids on Facebook posting about carjackings and this and that, and the idea that some citizen who goes through the right steps and actually applies for a gun permit, unusual in itself in the city, that we're going to somehow keep an eye on that guy. I just don't see it.
That was exactly what I was going to say. You kind of stole my thunder.
Great minds.
Right,
Great
exactly.
minds,
That there are some instances where, like, where I had a gun in my glove compartment that wasn't mine when I was 22 years old, and years later I go to apply. Apply for a gun permit and it gets rejected. Now maybe I think you can appeal these things, okay? But now it shows, the police have that. So I get a speeding ticket and it pops up, boop, rejected gun permit, gun. I'm like, well, he's walking up on me like this dude is just out of control or whatever. And I'm like, hey, no.
I would say one thing, and that is, I said I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. In other words, I'm not proposing. It's interesting, though, that whenever it comes to guns, and when anybody talks about anything that even smacks of gun control, the test is whether it was going to prevent all gun violence.
No.
That's what happens.
The test is
That's not right.
You're saying it's counterproductive.
No one is saying
saying-
the test is whether it's going to.
No, because I was even going to take it
It's a
further.
million
The
guns.
story I was going to
So
tell
what
was
harm
this.
is it gonna
Hey,
do?
my sister.
That's what I'm
Wait,
saying.
I guess my question is, what
it's a needle in a
harm?
that's-
haystack.
Lewis's
It
idea,
just
do I
makes
think
the
it's going to?
Yeah, it
I don't
makes-
think it's going to help that much. But what harm is it going to do?
But no,
It's just
I
going
know
to be
this.
more
And this is-
paperwork for the police, and it's not going to lead to anything.
But you
you
don't can't
need
say
a
that.
permit to carry a gun
It just
in
happens to
St.
be
Louis
guns.
anyway.
You have to have
Well,
the-
now that's
Right. I mean, people, okay. And I would say this. My sister's been happily married for many years. This is an instance from covering cops. I know I covered a story where his sister, her husband, was smacking her around. He pistol whipped the guy. Okay. All right. He got arrested and charged with like a gun crime because his brother-in-law was out of control and he took care of whatever. Now he would probably get rejected. All right. But the whole thing is, whatever happened in the future, the police would approach him like, hey, because you like, oh, he got rejected for a gun permit. Okay.
I'm not
Why?
saying
No, he
think
would
they're
only get
gonna-
rejected if he's a felon in Missouri.
That's not a felon. I'm saying it just happened.
Right. He
and there's
wouldn't
a
get
police
a
report.
No. In this used to be until 2008, you have to go to the sheriff or to the county police chief or your police chief to get a permit, but that's not the case
If you
anymore.
gave the police everybody who got rejected for a gun permit, everybody on that list would now be suspect of being some crazed gun-slinging yahoo. That's just the way it
that's
works.
not the way I see it. As I started to say, to me, this is a needle in the haystack proposition, and all you're doing is making the haystack a little bit smaller. You're giving the police places to go. Now, I'm not sure how you program that, how that would happen, but
All right.
Hey,
Police
Alvin,
computers.
let's move on to another topic in the city of St. Louis, where the Register of Deeds, Michael Butler, also happens to be the owner of a saloon. But this saloon is a little bit different from others because it doesn't charge by the drink, it charges by the hour. $10 an hour, all you can drink, and $20 an hour if you want top shelf. Some people have objected to that, including some leading Democrats who say they're going to quit the Democratic precinct caucus, whatever it is, because they think this is outrageous. It's going to lead to people trying to beat the clock and drink to excess. What do you think?
Remember, what was the lady's name who was running for office and she had the margarita machine?
Oh, yeah.
the auditor.
I raised my glass to the margarita machine. I will raise my glass to this concept because it's cutting edge. And it's where we're probably all going to go. And we all sit here and say, like, why we always got to be last to do everything in Missouri and in St. Louis? How about we be first? I think it's a bold, creative, and responsible concept in that, hey, we'll monitor you, just like any other bar, but this is how we're going to do business. I don't think it's a problem. I think other bars will follow suit.
I love the idea that we'll be first in the nation, Alvin. They're not charged by the drink anymore. A guy will go in and say, I'll have a gin and tonic. Well, that'll be $10 for the hour, sir.
But you can only have like one at a time.
Have we all read enough about binge drinking
Apparently not.
And kids who binge drink and who get into trouble and get into fatal head-on collisions. I think that it sounds, I understand what you're saying, Alvin, from an entrepreneurial spirit. I think it certainly sounds interesting, but I think the practical side of this is eventually, I'm afraid, and I hope I'm wrong, but I think somebody could very easily get severely hurt.
Well, we used to have this when I was in college. It was called Beat the Clock, and then in Massachusetts, the legislature outlawed them. But what happened was, at those bars where you had to, it was like an open bar for $10 for a certain amount of time, you would find there'd be very few bartenders. So you would pay your $10 or whatever it was, and then try and get a second drink.
You know, we can even have a gluttony bar where it's also all your pizza. We don't charge by the slice anymore. It's by the hour. Just eat as much as you can in the hour.
I don't want to name the restaurant, but we got several that actually do that.
The old Ryan's.
What's the big one? Golden Corral.
Golden Corral.
I mean, this is my night to defend things that really are great.
Well,
ideas. Like I said, the last topic, Willis Reed's idea isn't a great idea, but I think I'll defend it.
It's not a bad idea.
It's not great, but I'll defend it. Well, this one isn't great. I would say this, that the real problem for the bar, I would think, is that we do have dram shop laws, where they still call them that, where you are responsible as a bar owner for over-serving. And I would think that the reason I don't think this will last forever is, should you over-serve somebody, I would like to think your defense is a bit compromised by the fact that you have this.
You have an hourly rate.
I think your attorney would be very concerned.
Well, it's an open
about
bar, you know.
No, I understand that, but my point is, I think that would come into play. I mean, I think it's a free country, but
it's
this seems to be our Vice Hour, because our next topic, Bill McClellan, goes to Manchester, where I think on Manchester Road they have a bunch of massage parlors, and the locals there have objected to them, because they think there's too many of them, and they're also objecting to some of the shops that retail, adult lingerie and, sexy toys, that kind of stuff. What are your opinions? Are there too many massage therapy or massage parlors on Manchester?
No, I don't think so. I support massage parlors, and I think Manchester, that's a busy thoroughfare. And so you're not, putting it, well, I guess there are homes right next to it.
Yeah.
But I don't find massage parlors offensive at all. I think they're fine.
I was coming out of the Winchester laundromat, because if you have large comforters, that's a place to have them laundered. I'm going out to my car, and I look across and I see this giant pink house, and I think, that's interesting. I've never noticed that before. We raised our children. I mean, our children were babies in Manchester. The park, like just maybe a block or two from Dr. John's House of Fun, it was just, 2 or 3 blocks from this children's park. I do think things are getting out of control in Manchester. I think that when you have legitimate spas, whether it's Face and the Body or Massage Envy or what have you, that's obviously fine. But some of these other areas or some of these other businesses that usually you would only see along an interstate, if you get my drift, then
sounds kind of elitist.
They got a great idea. Wait a minute. They got a business. They had to get a business license, so somebody, gave them to that. And I'm like you said, Ray.
If they're not forthcoming about the product,
I've defended guns and
marijuana,
heavy drinking, and now this. But I'm with Bill. Come on, it's Manchester Boulevard. And just like if people want to do...
Actually, it's Manchester Road, and if it were in Kirkwood... If it were in Kirkwood,
that gets to a
little
point.
pink houses with toys and such, I don't know that you would be all down with that.
Downtown Kirkwood, maybe not, but like along Lindbergh.
This is downtown. This is downtown historic Manchester.
That's their fault. They gave them a business license. Let them do business. You cannot throw them out. You did it.
I mean, here's my thought: it's a zoning question. I mean, obviously they have the right. I think it's not right to conflate Dr. John's and the massage bars or whatever you call them are different issues. And
But actually, the city kind of sees it the same
No, I understand.
way,
I'm
that
not
you-
saying you're correct,
the
but I'm just saying
camel
they're different. But at the end of the day, it's about zoning. I mean, they can do whatever they want. I don't think we should presume their guilt. And I will say this: if we want Robert Kraft to visit our town, I mean,
We don't have a team.
It's like restaurants. You know, you're in favor of the massage envy and the chain places, but this is a little mom and pop shop we're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that that's actually
right.
what I'm saying, Bill.
Now hold that thought, because it's time to read the letters. Can't imagine what the letters are going to be like next week. Let's find out what they were.
Don't watch the show, Bob.
I was in the
hope I'm
Loop
not on
this
your
summer,
term.
and most visitors looked at the trolley out of morbid curiosity. It's time to exercise fiscal responsibility and pull the plug on any future taxpayer dollars to this project. That from Greg Gibson of Breckenridge Hills. We also heard from Gerard J. Erker of University City. Before we privatize the St. Louis airport, we need to consider the proper role of government. The people of St. Louis would surrender control of a unique transportation resource essential to the common defense and our security. What is the first asset captured by an invading army? Thank you, Gerard. And we heard from Dale Cannon, who wrote, regarding the playoffs, I'm reminded of what Bobby Fischer once said about chess. It's not skill so much that wins the contest, but it's whoever makes fewer mistakes. You can write us, care of KETC, 3655 Olive Street, 63108. Don't forget those emails, letters at ketc.org, or those tweets, hashtag Donnybrook STL. And you can listen to us on your favorite podcast source, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, and TuneIn. And speaking of those tweets, Ray and I will be reading them in just a matter of moments on your turn. So don't go away. Thanks so much for joining us. Talk to you in just a second.
Donnybrook is made possible by the members of the 9 Network.
We got the boss in the house. Boy, we had some strange topics. Not strange, but just
It was a different
an
program. Yes,
unusual
it was very unusual.
Group of topics, and thank you for watching us. And let's go to the phones to Charlie from St. Louis. Hello, Charlie.
Hey.
Charlie,
Good
what
evening.
beat
How are you
Charlie?
guys?
Hi, Charlie.
Say that every day in the mirror.
I have a couple questions about the trolley.
A lot more than a couple, but go ahead.
Let's see. I wanted to know where all the previous money has gone. Millions and millions of dollars. It seems overpaying for that fiasco. But then I had an idea that maybe if Ameren would provide free electricity, they could get some advertising on the side of the trolley.
Right.
And then the other $200,000 that's left, we could get a bunch of people from the streets to push the trolleys if necessary. And
All right.
Charlie, to
Still a
answer
lot
your
of
question, seriously, first of all, let's be clear. It wasn't like 51 million local dollars were wasted. There were some things, I mean, I don't want to relitigate it. There's been a number of infrastructure things that have happened with some of the federal money as part of the deal. The circle at the Loop that the traffic circle at the west part of the loop. And a couple of bridges were in the city which were really needed, were restored. The one at De Bolivar and Forest Park was replaced. Another one on Delmar. There's been a lot of infrastructure stuff that's done. I mean, this isn't condoning the fact that we are obviously in a very bad spot, but a lot of the money has been spent for different things. I think that there are some real questions, and there's mistakes people made. One of the mistakes that was made in hindsight that seemed very nice was the decision to go to the classic vintage cars.
I didn't like that idea at all.
Okay, well, but the point
I'd rather
being, it
be
was made
modern
for the
and new.
It was a mistake made with good intention.
Yeah, maybe.
But had they done what you're saying, that we wouldn't have had the disaster that we've had with the company from Iowa.
And I love Joe Edwards, as we all do, but I never saw a need for a trolley to go between the History Museum and the Loop. Right. And today, even though it's there's no reason for me to go on. It's not faster, it's not cheaper, it doesn't save time, whatever. So we're going
to have to figure out some other use for it, or certainly having it go away is not out of the question, but it doesn't look like a very good option.
I
don't
think
have
so.
any good options.
Hey, let's go to the next call. Thanks, Charlie. We'll go to Jim. Hi, Jim. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening. I'm a favor of the Loop Trolley. I hope a plan can be worked out that it can succeed.
Uh-huh.
I would think that the parking situation in the Loop area on the evenings would actually encourage people to park somewhere, and that's, to my opinion, what is lacking. Sufficient parking to make it more encouraging for people to board the trolley to go to any of the establishments in the Loop. Now, as I say, I'm hoping a method can be pulled out of a hat to keep it running. It was about a year and a half ago on Donnybrook when WOW Airlines announced they were coming to St. Louis through European flights. The panel seemed to be rather flippant in their comments about it, and I was able to call in that night saying, let's give it a chance. I put my money on the line and rode WOW to Dublin just about this time a year ago, and would do so again, at least once, had it continued to operate. So I may be in the minority here, but I hope the Loop Trolley can succeed.
Well, we appreciate that sentiment.
I think we gave some money to WOW, or we were supposed to for marketing purposes. I would have tried it. I would have gone to Reykjavik, but it didn't last more than 6 months. But with regard to the parking in the Loop, there are 800 free parking spots behind Fitz's in the Loop. So parking is not too much of a problem there.
I agree. Who's next? Kathy from West County?
Kathy.
Hi.
Hi, Kathy.
I'd also like to talk about the trolley.
Sure.
First of all, this is a two-parter. The first part is I'm very happy that the people of St. Louis and the leaders of St. Louis have tried something innovative and something new. Keep coming up with these different ideas, no matter how strange or whatever they seem to be. In my opinion, this one did not work. We threw money after it and tried this and that, and it's not working. So my suggestion would be to say, okay, we tried it, that didn't work. The second part of my comment is, I know where it would work. We've got these really nicely designed vehicles, and put some wheels on the bottom of them because I don't want to roll over any more of those trolley tracks, and take it around every single place in Forest Park. Every single feature, every single attraction. I mean, if I wanted to eat lunch at the boathouse, I could park at my house and get a better than parking down at the boathouse.
Fair idea.
One of the thoughts.
Thanks, Kathy.
Yeah, thank you.
And have this trolley be all free, all day. And all you would need
now who's going to pay for
is
it?
a mass place to park.
Now, hang on, Kathy. Who's going to pay for it if it's all free all day? That's the problem. This thing, it's not making any money if it's all free. But also,
I don't know.
you said, Kathy. Kathy, thanks. You said that it's a new idea. It's not a new idea. That's the thing. If they were trying something completely different and
in fairness,
exciting.
Charlie, what the thing is, and I don't want to relitigate it because it's.
Well, we are.
Well, but I mean, here's this part of it, and that is, we entered a competition for four federal. I think it was six federal, $25 million grants.
Oh, this was $33.9 million we got from federal.
We got 20. Well, originally there was a grant program to give $25 million grants. There was a competition of 65 cities. We were one of the 6 selected. Now it turns out that, our proposal was this one, and we got selected. It was like 2009, I think it was 2010, and in retrospect, maybe we shouldn't have won, but when you go back, you say, well, should we have not entered? And I guess you could say we shouldn't have, but it was one of those deals that I think everything that could go wrong did.
It's easy to spend other people's money. Ray, you and I had this conversation many times on Donnybrook.
Bill McCullough.
You always said, look, if you don't spend this money, someone else is going to get it. And that's exactly what's wrong with this country. Now we're $21 trillion in debt. The money shouldn't have been spent, period.
My point is, whether St. Louis would have been better off not getting $25 million of jobs and economic activity.
Jobs.
No, I mean, it's money that we could have gone to
out of people's pockets.
Now today
money
it
in
looks
taxpayers'
bad.
pockets. It could have gone to health care and fighting crime.
It could not have. That's what I keep telling you. It was a federal
program. Where do you think the money
place.
comes from? It comes from your pocket and my pocket and their pockets. That's what's wrong. Your tax and spend. Your tax and spend. It makes no sense what you're spending this on.
They had a pot of $150 billion that was earmarked for transit, and either we got our piece or we didn't.
That's the funny thing. It's not even transit. It's about as much transit as a Ferris wheel or a carousel. It's not answering our transit needs.
But what I'm trying to say is that there's no way to go back in time and say, well, it was the big thing is what we got to do is figure out what to do going forward.
What we got to do is get to a few phone calls.
Let's go to Kathy.
That was Kathy.
Let's go to Bill from
Rock Hill. Mr. Trolley himself.
He knows all about this.
Good evening, gentlemen.
You called this one, Bill.
We'll be running out at the Museum of Transport this Sunday if you want to come out and ride a trolley.
Sure.
Okay.
First of all, Kathy mentioned about going around Forest Park. That was originally part of Loop Trolley's long-term plan. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but basically this is why they're having the problems they're having. I mean, first of all, they made the mistake of narrowing Delmar. That's why everybody lost their mirrors. Second of all, they originally hired Bob Archibald to be in charge of it. Remember him?
Yes.
Third of all, they lost about 5 years after they fired Bob Archibald because for almost 5 years nothing happened. During that 5 years, they didn't adjust any of their costs for inflation. Mm-hmm. Then when they did start building, they started cutting corners to try to make ends meet because, their funding wasn't proper. Then, of course, once they did start, they hardly run the thing. I mean, who's going to ride it if it's only going to run 4 days a week on a very limited schedule?
Bill.
And finally, the final reason why it screwed up is they didn't want to listen to anybody that really knew anything about trolleys.
Well, Bill, I have to say, of all people, you have, as big as I told, you've called this show so many times, and you called this so right, so often. I got to give it to you, man. You really did. You've been
Why don't
on
you give
this.
it to me?
Because Bill knows what he's talking about.
I was on top of this early. Look, I would hate for this to be like Tom Brokaw flying in and calling this the fleecing of America, and that's what's going to happen if this thing goes belly up. But there is an accounting, the sunk cost law, and that is you don't throw good money after bad. And are you going to ask a private donor, Bob Clark and Clayco, to throw in another $500,000 when that money could go to something else?
So you're going to return all those federal funds.
Bill, talk to me about the Fed, because I was going to write. I'm writing about this. I'm interested. Maybe I should have you contact me at the RFT. But tell me about the. I think what you were talking about, was there actually a plan to connect the 4 other institutions? Because I think that would have changed it. If this
originally that was his long-term plan, is he wanted to expand it around Forest Park.
Do you think that was viable?
Well, here's the trouble from the get-go. I think his vision was he saw it more as an amusement park ride instead of transit, and that's where the problem. If you want to see it done right, go to Kansas City. They built a line that was the same length, but they did it right. They started later than he did, and they got it up and running within 2 years. And here's the other interesting thing.
They spent twice as much money.
They don't charge to ride it.
Right.
So
And they-
you know,
and they
it
have
can be done
They have
right.
professional management,
Right.
and
And they
you
spent
you have to
how much
go-
did they spend
but
on it?
hang
It's like
on a
100
second.
million?
You have to go places where people want to go.
Right, exactly.
And what is on De Bolivar that people need to get to?
Charlie,
I mean,
you're
that's-
right about that.
That's
you know,
the
you're
big
right
issue.
about that. And
I mean,
Kansas City,
it's so obvious. What's wrong with this town that we can't see that?
Okay, but the question is, Bill from Rock Hill, we've had because he's worth
Place
keeping on
was
it.
to try to redevelop the Bolivar.
Is there a way to do it in Forest Park, in your judgment?
Well, let's put it this way. It was done once before during the World's Fair.
Okay.
The
All
sad
right.
thing is they ripped it out.
Okay. Thank you for the call, Bill. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Who we got next? Don't look
We're
at me.
going to Dave in
Look at them. Don't
Defiance.
look at me.
Speaking of Defiance, let's go to Dave.
We're all in Defiance. How you doing, Dave?
Thanks, Joe, for taking my call.
Sure.
Good evening. And the broadcast station's number one. Okay. Anyway, I want to mention about the Loop Trolley, and maybe they could have took an example like St. Charles County, which operates the trolley down in St. Charles on Main Street, and made it drivable, and they wouldn't have spent near the amount of money which they spent for the Loop Trolley.
Maybe so. You know, there are a lot of businesses in that Main Street. It's a shorter period. Maybe it just went back up and down the Loop as opposed to going down to Bolivar to the History Museum. Because when you think about it, you get out of the pageant or Delmar Hall at 11 o'clock. Do you need to take the trolley to the History Museum? I don't get that.
One of the original things that I don't want to keep is it was supposed to connect the Loop to the Delmar station, and where nobody wants to go right now of Metrolink, and to the Forest Park station, and the station by, is that the one by not far from the History Museum, and
De Bolivar, yeah,
the De
right,
Bolivar
yeah.
station. This, and it was one of the concepts for was people would ride the Metrolink to one of those stations and take the trolley to the Loop, or vice versa. And once again, among the things that weren't foreseen besides Uber and Lyft was which weren't around in 2010 and when they got it, was the fact that Metrolink didn't happen the way it needed to. So anyway,
Well,
let's
also, when you think about it,
woulda,
let's say
coulda,
you're
shoulda.
at a hotel in Clayton and you want to get to the Loop. Do you really need to take the Metrolink to De Bolivar and then hop on another trolley when you could basically drive there in 4 or 5 minutes?
I do. A good friend of mine who's very expert on this stuff. We really need to reinvent. We need to rethink this along tourism lines, or perhaps something like what you're talking about, rather and concede that it is not working as mass transit. The tricky part of that is the federal government sort of gave us the money for mass transit, so it's and we are looking at very serious consequences to the if the feds
as we
come
should.
after,
As
after
we
the money.
should.
Okay.
We should have to pay $30 million
You know, what,
back.
let's
if
go to
that's
the
case.
Twitterverse and see if anybody wants to throw me a lifeline. I don't think so.
Liz Will wrote, the trolley was looking backward, better to look forward. Put more money into the Great Rivers Greenway. That's another topic for another day.
All right.
Hey, thanks a lot, Liz Will. Let's go to Bill in Bonne Terre. Hi, Bill.
The trolley is okay. You could have built the trolley. You could have made it look exactly the way it looks, but you don't need train tracks. Just put pneumatic wheels on it. You know, rubber tires like on a truck or whatever. They could have even looked like trolley wheels, but no track. You save a ton of money, and it's real easy to have it go in different places then.
For that matter, you could have put in a prototype for a year or two, something on wheels without tracks, and just see if people enjoy it. So you get a bus, make it look like a trolley, and run it for 2 years on a trial basis. It'll cost you $500,000. And then see, do people like this or do they not? And if they don't like it, you don't proceed. If they're crazy about it and they're lining up and they're fighting each other to get on the thing, then hey, yeah, then put in the tracks.
We got all these good ideas. Let's see, maybe one of them will happen going forward. Let's go to Crystal from Swansea. Hello, Crystal.
Good evening. Wonderful show tonight. Definitely a wonderful show. I would like to make a comment about the football game. I think that firing of the coach is too far-reaching. Maybe he needs to be penalized, forfeit some games. And the drinking idea, the idea that you can drink, as much as you want within an hour, I think that's a horrible idea. So many people are already inebriated as it is, so I don't think that's a very good idea. And as far as the gun, if you fill out for the background check and you're now able to get a gun. True criminals are going to get a gun on the black market anyway. So I wonder how that would be. What benefit it would be. So those are my comments.
That's great comments. We appreciate it. And
listen to the show.
I don't know. I'm really I do think there might be a civil liberties concern with that Lewis's idea. The more I think about it, I could go either way on that one. As far as I don't know. We talked about that. What did you think? I don't know. What did you say about the Cardinal? Did you think the president should be fired from Cardinal Ritter?
Not the president, but the coach. The coach had to know
I
that
think
the player was cheating the system. And
I think the coach for sure.
Yeah.
I wasn't as sure about the whole institution thing, but
we
what an
don't
interesting
know if the president knew anything about it.
What an interesting story. We don't usually talk about the Cardinals. Well, sometimes we do.
Cardinal Ritter.
I know.
Yeah.
Let's go. Who do we got next?
I think it's Dan in South City. Hi, Dan.
Hello.
Hi.
So I kind of remember back when this the trolley thing started, and I'm thinking it was Joe who said it, that by having the trolley going up and down the street, it would develop the area around it. The glass factory's on there, but they wanted to put other things on there and just have people stopping and getting off at bars and stuff all the way along. Because my goodness, that's a desert between U City and Forest Park. And I thought it was a clever idea just to develop that area.
Hang on a moment, just really briefly. The area on Del Mar east of Skinker is really developing like crazy. Now, I know some companies like Big Shark moved out because of the trolley. The tire tracks or the bike tires don't really mesh with the trolley tracks that well. However, if you take a look at the development down there, if you haven't been there in a while, you will be really impressed. And some of those owners, like I think her name is Maxine Clark, did say that she built because of the trolley.
They did, and that's Joe Edwards' part. And I don't know how to quantify. Joe has a number like $200 million, and I don't know how he's arrived at that. Washington University's developed down there, and I don't think they were going to do it anyway. And obviously Joe Edwards is the pageant and the Moonrise Hotel in that area, and there is Bob Clark, who has really stepped up to the plate. We don't know what he's what people might do. My only point about this is that we need to reimagine it. We need to just to give up on it and to kind of go back and fight over it is not helpful. We have a problem as a community. Maybe we can figure out a way to come together. Maybe there's some private sector dollars that can get involved. And I happen to like my idea of renting it out for private parties.
Hey,
I think that would be
massages.
That's only if it goes out to Manchester.
Extracurricular.
Let's go to Ann from Creve, Coeur. How are you, Ann?
Hi. Thanks for taking my call. Sure. I'm great. I was calling in about the Cardinal Ritter scandal. I have to agree with Wendy. I think the fact that this is bad that it happens anywhere, but I think when you're talking about a private Catholic institution that this happened, I just think it's so unethical. And then it's, what are you, the influence or the impact that it has on the students. But it's okay to do that because for the sake of winning. I definitely think that the coach should be fired, and I don't know if there's an athletic director above that, but I would think that there is, that person should be let go as well.
Yeah.
I can't argue with that.
Thanks, Ann. Thank you very much for calling.
It's just unfortunate.
Thank you.
Love the show.
Thank you so much. Bill McCall was worked up about that one, wasn't he?
He was.
He was. It was good.
Sean, you're in North County. Hi, Sean.
Hi, Charlie. Hi, Ray. Long-time viewer, first-time caller.
All right. Thank you.
I just want to give a shout-out. Yes, sir. I just want to first give a shout-out to my dad for first turning me on to the show back about 25 years ago when I was a little kid.
Nice.
So with that being said, we're North County folks, and I just wanted to also mention the Ferguson Jolly Trolley is an old-school looking trolley, and it is on regular wheels, as some of our callers have suggested that the Del Mar trolley be. I'll take your comment off air because I know we're pressed for time, but I just wanted to ask either Ray or Charlie, have you been to Denver, downtown Denver, and have you ridden that free transit that runs through downtown?
Right,
I'll take that up there, guys.
I haven't been
Have a
on
great
it.
night. Thanks for the show.
I've
yes
seen
and
it.
no. Yeah.
It's like on one, it goes right up and right back, and it's pretty popular.
I was just going to say, yes and no. I've been to downtown Denver, have not ridden on that. I'm trying to remember if I saw it, but I have heard, as you have, that both the Kansas City and Denver experiments with what they call circular, what do they call it? It's a circular, some kind of
circulator or something like
circulator,
that?
urban circulator, have been successful, but they go, like Kansas City's is very different from St. Louis in terms of, and they spent more money on it than we did, but it goes from places people want to go to places people want to go, and it's not at all comparable. And I'm one of the people that compared them when I wrote about this at St. Louis Magazine some years ago, and found out I was, for the first time in my life, I was wrong again, but because they really aren't comparable. But you know, I've been a supporter of this, and I just want us to try to figure out something. And I do think it's going to have to be something other than, we're going to have to concede that what we're doing right now isn't working, and I don't know what the answer is. So, but I don't think we should give up on it, and that's my opinion. Let's go to Bill from St. Genevieve. Hey, Bill, how are you?
Yeah.
Hey, Bill.
Hi. So anyway, I'm a first-time caller, and that doesn't mean we haven't been watching you for about 37 years, which is as long as my wife and I have been married.
Thank you.
Thursday nights were always our date night. On Thursday nights, we used to watch Donnybrook and then watch Jeremy Brett on Sherlock Holmes. We really miss that. So
Thank
anyway,
you.
I don't have any particular opinions about things tonight, but I have a couple of comments.
Right.
One being that $10 an hour for drinks in St. Genevieve would never fly. You'd lose your money. We'd have, your bachelor and bachelorette parties, everybody challenging each other to see how much they could drink in that hour's time. So I don't think it would fly down here. The other thing, we were just in San Francisco a week ago, and we took the Oakland to San Francisco ferry, and we're faced with either hopping on the trolley or hoofing it to get over to Fisherman's Wharf. And guess what? We decided to walk it because the trolley was nothing but a tourist attraction there.
Sure.
If the trolley doesn't really meet the needs of the people for traveling, it's just not going to fly, I don't think.
Good
Basically,
thoughts.
that's all I was
Well, we
calling about
really
tonight.
want to thank you for
Thank
watching
you.
and supporting the 9 Network, and thank you for the call. We appreciate it.
I don't think we can compare ourselves to the San Francisco trolley, but that sure
Probably
has
not.
succeeded through the years. They even named a rice after it, didn't they?
Let's
Something
go
like
to
that.
the Twitterverse.
Yeah.
Who's out there? Let me see. From JDR 1949, 100% agree with, who's that? Charlie on the trolley. Could have done a pilot with wheeled trolley for 1 year, $500K to gauge enthusiasm. Just still one of the many, many followers of Charlie Brennan in our community, and good for you and for all of them.
Thank you for your comments.
Tens of thousands. Is this Farouk from St. Louis?
Farouk.
Yes.
Hi.
How are you, sir? Welcome to the show.
I think they should save the trolley. All the money they've spent up until now shouldn't be thrown away. The trolley's a good idea. They just need to get it right.
Okay.
St. Louis needs to find ways to make revenue to support these things. Now, the drinking thing for the night, that'll never work. But some of your panel members might like it because I suspect more than 2 of you are drunk.
No. Okay, thank you for calling. Who's next?
We're trained
Who's
actors
go-
to perform
who's-
it that way.
who's
Gene.
next?
Hi, Gene.
Charlie, I agree with you. The money invested in the trolley, it was a waste. And I thought from the beginning, why would you want to invest that type of money on Delmar putting down tracks? That's cumbersome and awkward, interference with the businesses. what they should have did was just got a trolley bus, and that would have been more economical and more fun, because taxpayers are always the fall guy. When something fails, there goes our money down the drain. And I wish they had rethought this from the beginning. I thought a bus would have been just fine, and it would have served the same purpose.
Well, that's going to be the last.
park.
Thank you for the call. I think that's going to be the last word for the night.
Yeah. Thanks
I
up
think-
for all your calls.
I think we got some trolley calls.
Yeah, no kidding.
Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again next week. Good night.
Good night.